Hey, Bucket Pond family. My name is Terry, and today we are building a new set of sealed ecosystems. Yes, I'm building two twin ecospheres. We're going to start on day one. So these jars are going to be sealed eventually and never opened. And the goal is to create a living, breathing ecosystem inside of the jar. This is a Mount Olive 1 gallon pickle jar, and I have two of these because a YouTube member donated one to the channel. Thank you. And so I'm going to return it to them as a sealed aquarium. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to look something like this once we're done with it. And if we do things the right way, a sealed ecosystem like this could last for 5 years, 10 years, who knows? I'm going to start with some fluval stratum, the same bag of fluval stratum that I bought a while back. I use it very sparingly. This is the first time I believe that I'm using it in an ecosystem, in a ecosphere like this, but it should work really well. And I want to go for about an inch and a half, an inch and a half of depth, excuse me. We're going to add a seashell as well. You guys have seen me working with these shells a lot lately, and it's basically a calcium source for the aquarium. I'm going to add some marble as well, and it'll function in very much a similar manner. So the seashell will be a more readily available source of calcium for the snails and the other animals inside, and it will dissolve a little bit if the water becomes very acidic, which might happen with the use of the fluval stratum. So those marble chunks will function in the same way, albeit a bit more slowly. Now for plants, I am going to use some spike rush. Here in my, originally this was meant for growing moss, but I did put some spike rush in here, and that stuff has taken over. It's crazy. It's formed the exact shape of the container, and it's actually pretty strong. It can hold up a few pounds of pressure. So it's really weird. It's a little brown in there because the spike rush has soaked up all the water in this container, but that's fine. It's a very durable plant, and I can just add some water here and it will grow back. But I'm going to somewhat crudely chop out a chunk of the spike rush, and it does smell amazing. But we're going to take a chunk, and I'm going to separate a bunch of the small plants out of here. You could also call this hairgrass, a type of hairgrass. They are very closely related. My spike rush just happens to be a wild species. So I am pulling some baby plants out of here. It will take a minute. There are a ton. That's just how spike rush grows. It throws, we'll call them nodes. It throws nodes all over the place in the air, all around. It just kind of spreads those out. And you can just take them and plant them, and you're fine. So I've plugged in a number of small spike rush plants into the substrate. And now we're going to add some hornwort as well. This is from one of my previous aquarium builds right there. I had to add a little water to top that off first. But the hornwort in here is doing quite nicely. A little yellowing here and there, but that's fine. I love that we can use this plant so easily to grow more. A jar like this can just pump a hornwort out into the world, and at a pretty remarkable rate, considering it's powered by, snail waste and a little bit of substrate. So I'm going to gently put the hornwort into the aquarium there between the rock and shell. And I'm not trying to plant it down there. I'm just trying to get it sort of gently pinned into place. The hornwort is most likely going to end up floating anyway, and that's fine. It will do a good job either way. Now, I am including at least a few different types of plants in here because it's always a good idea to have a backup. It's almost crucial. Some things can go wrong. Maybe the spike rush doesn't make it in this aquarium for one reason or another. Having that hornwort will still allow the project to continue, although at a diminished rate, but it will still produce oxygen, filter the water a bit, and allow some of our creatures to live inside. In a perfect world, all of our plants would, thrive within our sealed container, but that's not always guaranteed. So I do like to include backups. Maybe the hornwort fails and the spike rush becomes dominant, or possibly the hornwort may just fizzle out after a few years of rapid growth. Who knows? It's an experiment. Every sealed project is a chance to learn something new. And so here we are refilling, or rather filling it for the first time, our new Ecosphere. I'm using that lid there to break up the water a little bit, the flow, because this fluval stratum is not rinsed, it's not cleaned, it's a little bit dusty. And you have to be really careful when you pour your water in there to not disturb it. So we're going to put our snail aquarium away for right now. I'm just using the standard screen mesh with rubber band lid design. And it's working really well, you guys. I know it looks a little funny, but it's the most effective type of lid that I can produce for less than $1. So that's pretty good. Now, as we work with these two new sealed ecosystems, I am going to do something a bit different. Right now, we are injecting samples of microfauna into the new tank. But for these builds, I'm going to do something a bit different. Usually, when you build an ecosphere, it is assembled or, gathered. The materials are gathered and put into the jar, and it is sealed right then on the first day. Here's some water meal, another backup plant that we are adding, along with some mulm as well that I'm going to inject down into the substrate. I'll show you more about that in a moment. But with these jars, I'm going to open them, leave them open when they're first set up, let it run for about a week or two, and then I'm going to close them for, let's say, 12 hours. And then we're going to open them for a day. And we're going to keep doing this, continuously extending the amount of time they are remaining sealed until the final closure. So now we're headed out here to the oasis, and we have a jar in hand. We're looking for samples. Right here, pool pond number 1 might look like an overgrown jungle hedge or something, but there is a pond in there, I assure you. And yeah, we have a sample here. There's something funny about pool pond number 1 when you take samples, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. But now we're going to head over to number 3. No, I think we'll go to number 2. Yeah, we'll take samples from number 2 today, which is looking really nice. It does have some algae growth. And there's something digging holes out here in the oasis. I think it might be a rabbit. I don't know. That's okay. We're not too worried about it. I've seen some wild things out here, you guys, and it's a lot of fun. But I do have to get out here and clean it up a bit. There we go. We have a water sample container from pool pond number 2. And we're going to get one more here, one more sample. At least one more. From our most hidden, most ancient bucket ponds. These things have been running for over 4 years. And they're right here, hidden down in the oasis. You guys probably didn't even know that I had bucket ponds right there, did you? But we're going to get a sample of each, and a little duckweed, some things like that. And I think we'll take one more sample from another location out here. But first, I want to show you something. This is the jar from pool pond number 1, and you absolutely cannot get a sample of that water without catching some mosquito fish. I think that's really cool. There are so many of them in there. The other ponds do have them, but not quite as densely populated. We're going to put the mosquito fish into one of our other projects outdoors, not into our sealed ecosystem. I cannot stand it when people put large, complex animals into closed jar ecospheres. It's not cool. But we're going to come over here to our bucket pond collection, and we're going to get a sample of these buckets. There's a good reason. I have a certain particular species of water mites that only live in these buckets. I don't know why, but we're going to go down to the bottom of the bucket and get a nice sample and pull it up right there. By inverting your jar and going down low, you can then turn it sideways, release the air, and suck up a bunch of cool stuff. So let's hope we have some of our water mites in here. And yes, there they are. They are much larger than many of our other microfauna species. You'll see them running around here. It's kind of like a large ball. These guys are really cool, and I've been trying to culture them for a while. We can do it out here in the bucket ponds, but in a controlled situation, I have not yet succeeded. So maybe they'll get established in these ecospheres and we can learn more about them. But here we are back in the fish room, assembling our various samples, and I think we did pretty good. We're also going to have to hide that Mountain Dew. Yeah, we'll put that over there. So yeah, that's what we have, and I'll be using the same samples in both aquariums, both of the new projects. I think a piece of my glove fell into that jar. That's not good. All right, so we'll be using both of these jars. The other one I'll build off screen for the most part, just so you guys don't get too bored seeing me set up the same exact project twice. And I'll be taking samples using our DIY pipette here, also known as a turkey baster. I could buy a pipette for like 15, 20 bucks, or I could get a turkey baster for $2. So that's what I choose to do. And we'll be applying samples from each of those wild jars into our new ecosystem build. It's going to be a lot of fun. Now, I do want to reiterate, I am building two of these because I happen to have one of these large pickle jars on hand. And one of the YouTube members approached me and asked if they could give me one. They had one of their own. So I, of course, said yes. And yeah, that's what we're doing today. I'll be delivering the better of the two ecospheres to our kind donator as a thank you. If you give me a jar, I will fill it with life and give it back to you. I think that's kind of fun, right? But this is a big deal for me because this is the chance for one of my sealed ecosystems to get out there into the world and see what happens. I have a very simple care sheet, it needs some light, can't get too hot or too cold. It's real simple stuff. You don't have to feed them or anything. You don't have to clean it or do water changes. None of that. It's not perfect, of course. There are going to be some unusual critters inside. And for instance, studying one of the jars that we collected from the oasis, we have some dragonfly larvae in here. I believe that's what they are. You can see a few different sizes and varieties. And we also have some very interesting copepods. I'm guilty of not showing you guys the microfauna enough, I believe. But to me, they're just kind of a fact of life. There's one of our weird water mites again. These guys are really hard to record. They move away really quickly. Um, I know you're saying like, oh, it's just a jar, just turn it around. It's not that easy. But I do need to show the microfauna more because to me, they're just kind of a fact of life. These copepods, they're just kind of part of the crew. I expect to see them in everything that we do. And if you're out there struggling to raise similar creatures, maybe you can benefit from my videos. Who knows? But there's one of those little water mites, and I do think those guys are cool. I really have to understand them a bit better, and then we can begin to learn about them and figure out their life cycle and what we have to do to raise them in our jars. You gotta admit, it would be cool to have a million of those guys swimming around. They're pretty big. You might even see one here, right there. Yeah, I need more of them. I need a bunch of them. And there may even be an application for a live fish food that people may enjoy. There might be a whole market for these special water mites. Who knows? I'm always thinking of things like that. So now we're going to inject Mulm from the wild samples directly into the substrate. I did promise to show you more of this later in the video, so here we are. And I am just very carefully taking mulm from the samples and injecting it down into the fluval stratum. And then the water, I just inject into the water column. You might be asking yourself, why are you doing this? Why inject mulm from your ponds down into your nice new jar? And that's because I'm not trying to build a nice new jar. I am building an ecosystem. I am artificially creating the lowest level of the pond right now. And also, I think this is really beautiful the way that the mulm just kind of pumps into the substrate. It's cool. But this will artificially seed the new project with a ton of life, bacteria of all sorts of types, algae, yes, algae, bacteria, microfauna, things that we can't even see, water bears and things. I wouldn't be surprised to find them in here, especially from pool pond number 1, which is several years old and has been running off of compost and things falling into the pond. This is my favorite part of the builds, infecting the new systems with microfauna and algae and stuff. I really enjoy doing that. And something about it. But I do believe that this artificial mulm layer is important to the success of our new project. If I assembled some rocks, some clean water, and threw some hornwort in there and sealed it up, yeah, it would probably grow for a while, but it's going to lack so many elements that it needs in a functional ecosystem. We need the unknown. We have to take risks a little bit with these setups. Trying to build a sterile ecosphere, I believe, is cool, but it's not my style. And I should mention, you guys, that this is all based off of some work that NASA did in the past. They had the CELSS, the Closed Ecological Life Support System, I believe is what it was called, which inspired a few bright individuals to create the first ecospheres from a company called Ecosphere Associates, I believe is what it's called. And they famously sent ecospheres, thousands of them out, including to the famous Carl Sagan, who thought it was pretty cool in the little blurbs that I've read that he wrote. So yeah, I'm kind of, I believe, falling into that line. They were able to achieve there at NASA near perfection when it came to oxygen and water recycling and nutrient recycling in general. I believe that we can do the same in these jars. And some of my oldest ecospheres have been running for 5 or 6 years now, and they're doing really well. Larger is definitely better. You see that small jar on the right, that quart jar? That is not the best size for an ecosphere. You can make it work, but if you can go up to a gallon or more, it's going to be a much more interesting project. So the system is a little murky, and that's fine. That's okay. That's part of the process. I do want to show you something up here at the surface. We're going to add some filamentous algae, along with an extra little piece of hornwort. This stringy green stuff is filamentous algae, and our small microfauna creatures will absolutely love eating this stuff. I know this is contrary to what many aquarium people would do. They hate algae in general, but it's mostly being misguided. Algae is generally beneficial. And the more food that we have growing in here for our ostracods and other animals, the better the plants will do in general. So let's head over to the shelf. Yes, this is the shelf built into one of my windows. I do not advise you build shelves in your windows, but that's what I've done here. And this is where we keep the best ecospheres. We have the polydariums, the sealed polydariums, the pond ecosphere right there in the background. And this is where our 2 new ecosystems will begin their lives. Now, I do want to do a little cleanup here. I'm going to do a slight water change, and I'm going to skip that so you guys don't get too bored. The video's already pretty long. So now as a final step, I'm going to add one piece of dayflower. I do have a little cut on the side, and contrary to my original beliefs, dayflower can survive in a sealed system for over a year at least. But the main purpose of that dayflower is to release rooting and growth hormones. I've seen the effect firsthand. Dayflower produces a natural rooting hormone, which I believe can influence other plants. Some other gardeners and aquarium people feel the same way. You can find some information online. I'm hesitant not to include links outside of YouTube in my descriptions because YouTube already hates me. So I'm going to try to make the algorithm my friend at this point. I am using the standard mesh with rubber band lid for now. And that's because these jars are not yet sealed. Those in the background are sealed, of course, but the two that we're building today will remain open. As I mentioned, we will be weaning them off of the outside atmosphere over time. And I think that's pretty cool. So here we are. We have both of them lined up together. It's getting a bit dark outside, so I have had to switch over to additional lighting. And sorry about that, you guys. I'm having some issues with the recording, but the tanks look very interesting, and I did set them up as close to identical as I could, with the same amount of substrate, the same amount of stone and shell, roughly the same amount of plants, and with microfauna, I did the best I could. The goal is to create two identical ecospheres because I'm going to give that one to our YouTube member, and I'll keep the other one. But I would like to study the one we keep and get a good idea of what's going on with the one that we gave away. So I'm adding one piece of dayflower to the second jar to complete the build here and to make them match. So, they're not going to be completely identical, but we got pretty close, I think. And yeah, I'm pretty happy with how they're starting out. So now we're going to do something really fun. We're going to inject microfauna directly into the jars. You're going to really like this, guys. Here we go. Now, just check it out. This is from my ostracod cultures. I don't show them much on channel on screen. But we are able to raise these larger ostracods in rather dense numbers. And I think they're really great. They're one of my favorite pets nowadays. And sadly, they have completely replaced my original ostracods, which were a slightly different species. That's okay. I also injected some green water into here because that is a favorite food of our ostracota. It might look a little funny, but that stuff goes a long way with feeding our microfauna, so it's a crucial element. And we're picking up on day 3. Yeah, this video took a long time to make, you guys. So here we are, day 3. The jars look pretty good. I do see a bit of deviation from one another. They're not quite identical. Jar on the right is a little bit cleaner, a little bit more clear, and the jar on the left has just a bit more green water algae. That's okay. Ultimately, I think they're both very interesting, and I have no complaints. So we're going to call them jar number 1 and jar number 2 for the purposes of this video. And yeah, I think they look pretty nice. They're very natural. Got to keep in mind that we're not building a SeaWorld display here. We're assembling a living machine of snails and worms and plants and bacteria and all these fun things that go on to make life on Earth possible. And we're going to get a little shaky with the camera here, so you'll have to forgive me, but there we go. So our new ecosystems are rather interesting, and I see a lot of activity in here. Speeding it up to 2 times, we'll see a ton of ostracods jumping around, And speaking of which, there's even a jumping spider on the back wall making very threatening motions towards our bladder snails. And I think that's hilarious. The poor thing. I hope it doesn't waste too much energy trying to get one of the snails, but that's funny. Yeah, it's just a little jumping spider and it's harmless. He's not in the jar, he's just on the backside of the jar. But yes, they do look amazing. I will be taking the lids off and sealing them up for a short time here soon. We'll likely give it a few days before we start doing the atmospheric encapsulation. That's what we'll call it. Yeah. But the jars do look pretty good, and I am so excited to give one of our Ecospheres to a YouTube member. Um, you guys, I've literally dreamt about selling Ecospheres on the internet. I know it sounds weird, but something about that, about building little worlds and sending them out for someone to enjoy, I would love to do that. And I am doing it, kind of, and I do love it. So just want to thank you guys, everybody part of the channel, everyone who's out there watching and commenting and stuff. You guys are really great. So here on day 5, we are now revisiting the shelf and we are checking on the projects. They look pretty good. We see a little bit of hornwort growth, a little bit more on jar number 2 on the right there. We see some spike rush growing as well in jar number 1 on the left. Both are actually still pretty similar, and that makes me happy. The main reason I am taking so long with these instead of just sealing them up was because of a suggestion from you guys. Oh, I think it was last year. A commenter asked, why not try it this way? Why not build the ecosphere, close it up, let it sit for a while, open it, and do this process, over a period of time until you finally seal it permanently after it's had a chance to develop and to really become something unique. And I think that was a great idea. Now we're adding some food for the aquariums. 2 large slices of cucumber. This is very important because any items that we add right now will eventually be locked into this jar forever. So the nutrients, the vitamins and minerals and stuff in these cucumber slices will be part of the tank forever. It will get eaten by the snails and then broke down by the worms and then so on and so forth until it becomes part of the plants in this ecosystem and repeats the cycle. So what food we add now is very important. At the same time, I don't want to add too much food or too much substrate because you can make your water toxic and everything can fail. And I think that's what happens to many wild ecospheres. So here on day 25, we're moving ahead quite a bit here. The jars look pretty good. Jar number 2 still shows a lot more hornwort growth than jar number 1. We're going to take off their little hair nets and begin exploring our jars once again. So these things remind me of the Lego lightsabers, the blue and green ones. I think that's kind of cool. And yeah, I used to do Lego a lot when I was a kid, so it's cool seeing that there's people out there collecting, adult collectors and stuff. Too expensive for me, though. I can't get into that. We might build a little Lego guy and throw him in one of the jars one day. Let me know what you think about that idea. But now we're doing a water change, mostly on jar number 1. It's a bit more cloudy than number 2. And I do see that we have a problem here. We have some beautiful visuals going on, but we have a few too many bladder snails. Once I seal this up, this jar will not be able to sustain such a large population, and many of them would end up starving to death. It's a horrific thing to do, and you guys got to know I'm not going to kill my babies, not like that. So what we're going to do is get our little shovel and carefully catch about half of the snails that we see in here. We want to leave a handful inside to continue the, spawn the next generation. water that I removed from the Ecosphere may still contain some microfauna, so I will use that in a separate aquarium. Anything that I, you know, use that water with will be contaminated from all of the ponds and everything outdoors. So I have to be a little bit careful. But at the same time, cross contamination of all of my jars and all of my ponds and stuff, it results in an easier working environment for me. You know, why stress out so much about a certain type of algae if we're able to control it and it's just there in the background? That's how I feel about it. So I've shown you the snails, but we also need to look at the worms. These guys are Darrow worms. I got them from Psycho Plant Lady in Florida. She's on YouTube. She's got a great channel, and she has amazing worms in her outdoor pool pond projects. Definitely check her out on YouTube. These guys will be part of our cleaning crew, and they are very important. They'll break down animal waste and plant material and turn that into more readily available fertilizer. And here we are. I'm starting to think of these jars as entities. Does that make sense? As a superorganism, it feeds on light, and it feeds on light and warmth, and it produces all these different little elements of itself. All the snails and worms and things. The snails have been in here long enough to begin reproduction. There are likely some hatchlings. And I've decided to go ahead and name the projects. We have the big green ecosphere. I love it. That's the one we're going to keep. And we have the garden ecosphere. That's the one that we're going to give to our kind donator, a sponsor of the channel. And that's really how I think of the YouTube members. You know, you guys are my sponsors. You believe in the channel. It's only $1 a month, but it means a lot to me. You might notice some interesting stuff up here at the surface of the jar, up above the water. This is the water meal that we added at the beginning. This stuff is really interesting. It's a lot like duckweed, but it's a lot smaller and it has no roots. So it's like a little floating leaf. And the stuff will occasionally get knocked up onto the surface, either by the snails or by me jiggling the jar a little bit. But it will become food for the animals in time, so it's very good. Now, I did think about using wax to seal these jars. I want to show you guys that it's permanently sealed. A wax seal would be really good, but I could not do a dip on this because there's no way I could turn it upside down. So I dumped a whole bunch of hot glue into the rim of the lid, and we're going to seal it just like this. And that's it, you guys. That's the final encapsulation of this ecosystem. We're going to repeat the process on this jar. Put a little extra glue on this one. And we're going to tighten it right there. Yes. Now, these lids are airtight. I'm just doing that hot glue to hopefully keep them in place forever. And now we're going back to the shelf. Yes, the shelf, you guys. I need to start talking about these weird things that I come up with mentally. But I think of this as the shelf. And these projects, they fight for space up here. There's only so much room, and I lack the lumber to expand. So it is what it is, and sometimes in my mind, these jars are battling for who can succeed in the best way to, establish their place on the sunlight shelf. And that is in what, an east-facing window? Yes, yes, it's an east-facing window. We do get some sun, direct sun in the morning, but it's not too bad. Lots of trees out here and stuff. So these jars are developing nicely. And fast forward to day 42. That's today if you're watching it on Sunday. Here are the jars. They look amazing. I am so happy with this. The big green ecosphere continues its namesake, or to live up to it. That green water will be great for our ostracods and our other great creatures. Sorry, you guys. I get a little tongue-tied sometimes. But I am super happy. I'm really thrilled with how these have come out. They are both permanently sealed at this point. I will not have to do any maintenance on these. And we will be delivering the garden ecosphere on the right for a friend and member of the YouTube channel. Thank you so much. I hope that you enjoy your new sealed aquarium. For everyone else, thank you for watching. If you would like to support the channel, please become a YouTube member. It's only $1 a day, and I put a lot of energy into the daily posts. So I think that you guys might like them. I try to show a lot of attention to the YouTube members. So thank you so much. Have a great day. And again, we will see these projects, at least the big green ecosphere, in the future.